So, I don't think people will think that you've actually moved since the last video. It's actually probably a fair comment, really, isn't it? You do get up for your dinner, don't you? You do, if there's food involved. You're not helping today? No? Oh, I don't know. That's probably as good as it's going to get. Hi there, it's Anna, Rosie Duck Designs here. Thanks ever so much for joining me today. I'm sort of halfway through a project, so it's not a full tutorial, but I just thought it would be perhaps useful to share some of the techniques that I'm using on a particular card with you. It's not a difficult card, but it's one of those that takes a bit of time to put together, so I didn't want to inflict that sort of length of video on you. And it's basically, the story behind it is one of our friends' parents is actually celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary, so I kind of thought it deserved a special card. I've certainly known them probably since I was a teenager, so I thought it would be nice to sort of show really the congratulations, I suppose, of them actually achieving that. Some poignancy as well for me, because my own parents actually would have been celebrating their 65th anniversary this year had they still been with us. So it was kind of nice to be in a position to at least create something for somebody else who is still with us to enjoy it. So this is the actual card that I've made, and as you can see, it's a lot bigger than I would normally make. So the actual base card of that is 8 by 8, and you'd be right in thinking that with the cardstock that we have at Stampin' Up, without sticking card together, we don't have big enough pieces of card to make that particular base card. So I have gone kind of a little bit off piece with this one, because whilst I would normally show you Stampin' Up products only, because of the occasion, I kind of thought that it was more important that the card was right. So what I did was I went and I got a base card very cheaply from another card craft shop. So it's in its entirety. It does come with an envelope, but the card is going to be too thick to actually fit in the envelope, so I'm going to make a box for it. So that's going to be part of the tutorial. Now apparently the 65th wedding anniversary is a blue sapphire. 45 I think is sapphire, and it's, with a bit of googling, it turned out that there are different colours of sapphires. So although I'd primarily thought that sapphire was blue, actually it isn't necessarily, although that is the most popular colour. But the 65th anniversary is specifically a blue sapphire. So I've gone with Blueberry Bushel as the colour. That was the nearest I could get to a blue sapphire colour. As you can see, it's a series of just very basic circles, and it was when I put the Blueberry Bushel onto the base card, it kind of reminded me why I fell in love with Stampin' Up products in the first place, because of the colour coordination. So I've got a white base card, so you'd think that white of any description would work, but actually no, there are different shades of white. I have to say the Stampin' Up one is against this white. This is a sort of a very brilliant white. This is a more creamy white. So it looked a little bit odd, so I basically cut a big circle, a big square, so that I could stick that on the front, so the white didn't stick out like a sore thumb. And inside it didn't matter so much, because I've got mainly Blueberry Bushel over here, and yeah, that is a different tone, but you can get a little bit too hung up, I think, so I've left that alone. So what I've done, I'm going to have my ruler for this because I can't quite remember. So it was 8 by 8, so I've done 7 3/4 by 7 3/4 just as my base square. And then my first Blueberry Bushel square is 7 by 7. And then I've put a square of Whisper White, which is 6 by 6. Then I've got another gap, quite a gap here because I wanted to put this bit on here. And then my next Blueberry Bushel square, I'm just going to get in the way of your camera, is 4 by 4. And then my final square I've cut out with the stitched stitch frame dies. Ones that have got the ovals, the squares and the circles, whichever ones they are, the ones I use so many times. So this is the biggest square that I've got. I've got a 65 that I've cut out, and I have to say, unfortunately, they were Stampin' Up numbers, but they were retired last year, which was a great shame. And I have to say, at this moment in time, we have nothing in the catalogue that actually cuts out numbers. We've got some cutting out dies that cut out letters, but nothing for numbers. So if you're fortunate still to have this set, then that will work brilliantly. Otherwise, it's going to be a case of, when you're looking for a number, I'm afraid having to look elsewhere for it. But there are lots of choices, I have to say, in the various craft shops. My guess is that probably we don't use numbers that much, and therefore perhaps it was in the catalogue a long time, but I really don't know. I'm hopeful that they're going to bring something else back that's going to replace that. But for the time being, as I say, it was more important for me that the card was right. So I've gone with a non-available Stampin' Up product, I'm afraid. This is the stitched label framelits that I've just heat embossed the happy anniversary sentiment onto, and that has come out of one of my favourite stamp sets, the Beautiful Bouquet. So that will be no surprise to any of you who watch me on a regular basis. I love that set. It's just got seemingly everything that I use as sentiments all the time. The embossing that I've done inside, the congratulations, is from the first Frost stamp set, and then I've got the initials of the couple and obviously 265s there, and that's come out of the Make a Difference stamp set, which again is a great stamp set to have if you want letters and numbers that you want to emboss, or even just stamp. So that's basically the card, and all these flowers are heat embossed with silver emboss powder onto vellum, and obviously there's a selection there made from the Daisy Lane stamp set and the Floral Essence stamp set. So it's this stamp here and the small daisy that I've actually used on the card. So there was a bit of trial and error going on with that. I did try Blueberry Bushel, just stamping it on, but that didn't work. So although it's a blue anniversary, not a silver one, I think the silver kind of complements the blue, so I've gone with the blue. And then I've got the clear faceted gems, just making the centres of the flowers stand out. Little addition here, these are just 3 little bits of floral things that you buy to put in floral arrangements, and I just happen to have some of those in my stash, so I've just added those as well, just to give a little bit more detail. And I've stuck those onto the back of this square using some double-sided tape, and then the square has been put on with some Stampin' Dimensionals. So that's basically talking you through the card. Obviously a card like that isn't going to fit into an envelope, so we're making a box for it. already I'm thinking there's two things that I haven't brought in, which that's not going to surprise you, is it? At all. One of them is the bottom of the box that I've already made up, so that's kind of important. But let's make the box first. So as I say, I've made the bottom, and my card, as I said, is 8 by 8. I've got some crinkly paper just to put in the bottom of it, so I've allowed a base of 9 inches, and then I've scored at 1.5 on both sides and turn it around 1.5, 1.5. That is for the base. And to do that, I've used the 12 by 12 Whisper White cardstock that is available to buy from Stampin' Up, and I've used my scoring tool, which is £28 and invaluable if you are somebody who likes to make gift boxes. It's so much easier than using the scoring tool on your stamping trimmer, and it comes with £23. Oh, £23, yes, it's gone down. I'm not, let me check that actually. I've got 28 in my mind. I can even find it. There we go. No, it's £28. It is £28. I do apologise. It's kind of like when I say turn right. Yeah, £28, but still invaluable because as I say, it makes it so much easier to score pieces of card. So this was my 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. I've stuck a note on there to remind me that's the top of it. So because this is the top of the box, I've allowed 9.5 inches for the lid. So with my scoring tool, there's two ends to the stylus there. I've used the thicker end, and I've literally laid my card down and I've scored down at 1.25, and then I've gone down to the other end and I've come in at 1.25, and I've just scored down there. So 1.25, 1.25, that's 2.5, and 9.5 is 12. Is that right? Hopefully. So I've just turned then my card around and I'm doing exactly the same thing down here. And 1.25 down at this end. So that's that. Put that down to one side. So I want to make all my lines nice and crisp. So I'm using my bone folder to do that. What I'm going to do before I'm actually going to put the lid together, I'm going to actually finish off most of the front of the card, because it's going to be easier to stick it while it's flat than it is when it's actually put together. But I don't want to be doing the central bit because I don't want to squash that. So I've got here, because this is 9.5, yeah, by 9.5, I've got an 8 by 8 piece of Blueberry Bushel cardstock, which I'm just going to stick in the middle using my snail. So with these big bits of card, obviously there is a reasonable amount of glue being used, so you could use double-sided tape, you could use Tombow liquid glue, but I am kind of more comfortable with my snail, so I'm going with that. So I'm just looking, I suppose I could try and do this more professionally. It's not really a word that goes in the same sentence with me, is it? No, it's not, is it's not helping my brain. There you go. I'm going to wing it like I usually do. Doesn't look too bad. I'm thinking you probably, if you were more intelligent than I am, you could use your grid paper to help you line it up. But so it's more fun just winging it, isn't it? So I've got a 7x7 piece of Whisper White, and I've added this detail using the detailed trio punch, and I've used this element of it. I did actually mean not to cut them all out, but I kind of got carried away. So assuming this was your little bit of paper, all you're doing is pushing the corners. You've got like two edges here, so you're pushing your piece of paper straight into the corner, and what you need to do is actually make sure that you're bringing down the pressure on all of the punch, because if you do this, so putting the pressure just on the area that you're punching, it hasn't actually happened this time, but you can get a little line here where it's, instead of getting equal pressure, you've put more pressure down and it catches on the card. It took me a while to work that out. No, it's behaving itself this time. But anyway, to make sure that it doesn't do that, make sure that you put your pressure on the entire punch. So that is what I've been doing with all my bits of card. These look like they're ready to go on the floor somewhere. So I've done that with my piece of Whisper White, and I want to stick that onto my card that's already on the base of or on the top of the box. So again, I'm going to attempt to even that out, centralise it. And then the last thing I'm going to do before we put the box together is to add this one. So again, I've cut the corners out, so I've got the blue showing through on this one, and then I'll have some white showing through on that one. And that one is 5x5. So again, I need to stick that down onto the middle of the card that I've already got on there. So I want to try and line these up with the little dots, if that makes any sense. I don't want it sort of a little bit skewy if I'm trying to get a reasonable alignment with that. By putting it down a bit gingerly like this, you're giving yourself a little bit of time to rescue it if it's not right. Once you've stuck it down, there's kind of no going back from it, unlike with the liquid glue, which you do get a bit of wiggle room with. So that might be that could certainly be the way forward. So we're going to put our box together. So turning it over, I'm going to be cutting up to this line, this folded line on this piece here. So I'm just going to go up to the corner, and then I'm just going to take a little slither off of there. And I'm going to do that on each side. Turn it round. Lots of little silly bits of paper go all over the floor. A bit more out than that. It's just a tiny slither. It sort of hasn't got to be exact. Nice. So I've now got effectively my lid ready to stick. So it's going to be, turning it over, it's going to be these 4 pieces that need some glue on it. So we're going to put some snail on here. You do need to make sure you get enough glue on that because it's going to hold the box together. So turning it back over, bring this one up, and then what we're wanting to do is just bring that in so that it sticks there on the corner. So you're bringing your side piece up and you're wanting this bit to fit into the corner area of here, so you get a nice corner. So it is possible, I'm not going to stick it, but it would be possible to bring it up and bring it slightly out of line, in which case then your box is not going to have that nice square shape. So we're wanting to make sure that this bit lines up with this bit. It's not easy with white, is it? Are you getting that? So there we go, we've got a square box. Now the thing with the 12 by 12 Whisper White cardstock, it's not thick Whisper White cardstock, so it's got a bit of give in it, which is great for card inside of cards. How long now? 24 minutes. Yeah, I knew it was going to be long even without all the rest of it. So I'm going to try and put the rest of this box together, and then I think we'll probably pause it and start again. So I'm just going to reinforce the sides of the box, and to do that I've cut, because it's 1 1/4 inches, I've actually cut 1 1/8 inch, and it was 9 1/2, so I've cut 9 4/8 inch, so it's very slightly short of the side of the box.
So 9 4/8, that's 9 1/2.
Sorry, 9 3/8. Yes, 9 3/8. Yeah. I'm glad you're awake. What am I going to say for you, Ollie? So I'm sticking that onto with some snail, and I'm just literally going to push this down to the base. I'm going to put it hard up to one end, so that in theory I've then got a little bit of a gap down this end to fit the next one into. And if it's a bit proud on the other end, you can always adjust it on the last one. It helps if you put the sticky side round the side that you actually want to stick. That's my top tip of the day. If only you could see the rolling of the eyes. So again, right into the corner up this end. Yeah, we have a slight issue here. Let me do this one. Let's see if I can mess this one up. It was going so well, wasn't it? Never mind. Get that one out of the way. Talk amongst yourselves. So it hadn't gone down to the bottom, that's what the problem was. So I might just have to, I don't know quite what I might have to do with this. I might have to cut it, I think. Might be the order of the day. So it's a case of don't do as I'm doing, do as I suggest. So what I'm going to do with that, I'm just going to come along the top and just tidy that up. Go from this one. This is why my videos are so long. Okay, that's not the end of the world. In the great scheme of things, I don't think anybody's going to be picking a box up and examining every tiny issue of it. You could obviously, if something like that happened to you, you could just do what I've done and then just cover the whole lot with another piece of Whisper White. Phew. So we will pause just for a moment, I think, before it gives up the ghost, the tablet, and then I'll be back to hopefully finish it off. So I've now reunited myself with the base that I made earlier, and exactly the same concept of reinforcing the sides of it. And I've got some of this scrunched up silver and white paper, which I'm just going to use on the bottom to put the card in. So there's plenty of room. There's sort of a whole inch space around it, sort of ½ inch either side, for them to get their hands in to actually pick the card up, which I thought was kind of a good idea. My OCD got the better of me, so the side that I messed up, which I believe was this one, I've actually cut a new piece of paper, or card rather, and I've just covered that over. So there are no joins to be seen. And remarkably, we both let out a very big sigh of relief when we established that the top actually went over the bottom. Always good. So I'm going to put the... You're moving around on your chair again.
And my foot got stuck.
Well, as long as we know what's going on. How can I put this for safety? You look quite safe at the moment, so I'm going to put that up there. So we're just going to finish off the top of the box. Now because it's a square, I haven't got to particularly worry what I'm doing. It's always good. So I've pre-heat embossed, as I said earlier, the happy anniversary sentiment, and I've grabbed my dies while I was out, and it is the stitched labels die that I've actually used to cut that out, using my big shot. So it's that one I've actually used, which is a really nice set, because you know, if you're looking for a pretty label, you can of course just use one of the label punches and just adjust your sort of sizing accordingly. Now that I'm going to stick on with some stamping dimensionals. That's why I've left a bigger board around here, so that I could still have this contrast of the blue against the white. Stick that somewhere in the middle. And then I've cut out the square from some Whisper White cardstock, and I've used, as I was saying earlier, the stitched labels dies. No, not the stitched label dies. Stitch shape frame it, sorry, rewind. So it's this one that's got the squares, the ovals, circles, ovals and squares, and I've gone for the biggest one just so that my central square has got a bit of design on it. You could just of course carry on using a normal cut out square and just cut out your little corners as we've done on these two pieces. So the next job is for me to stick the 65 on, and I'm going to use some small stamping dimensionals to do that. These are the half size stamp cases which are available to buy, and they're great for storing things like embellishments and stamping dimensionals, that sort of thing. Those things that you've got cluttered all over your desk and you tend to not know quite where to put them. So I'm going to cut just the edges off of this. I want to make sure it's stuck down well enough, but I don't want it showing through through the number. This bit's a little bit thinner than over here, so I'm just going to cut a little bit off of my stamping dimension. Let's do both of them at the same time. So I've got a nice thick bit there on the 5. So it's just something to be aware of, that you want it raised up, but you don't necessarily want to be showing the medium by which you've raised it up. So I'll cut a bit off of here. Stick that one there. Now I am probably going a bit over the top with this, but I just want to make sure it's secure and it's not going to sort of be able to be bent in any way. I'm just checking that, and you can't see, you can see a little bit of this one. So let me just grab a bit off of here. Take my covers off. but I'm going to stick the 6 down first. So it probably would have made more sense to take these off first, wouldn't it? But I just happened to have the 5 in my hand at the time. And why make life easy for yourself? It's so much more fun when you complicate it. So there we go. Put one there as well, which doesn't help. So that's about, yeah, okay. Don't think that's particularly helping me. There you go. Whoops. I should go on the comedy channel, really, shouldn't I? It's a special section on YouTube for comedy. A bit like you have on Pinterest with all the comedy quotes. There we go. So I've got my 65. And I'm going to attach that to the front of the box with some stamping dimensionals. Again, I'm going over the top a little bit. But we want it to survive. It's got to survive to at least the week after next, hasn't it? So we don't want it getting damaged. There we go. So I'm just going to stick that in the middle. So it's basically above this little sentiment thing as well. There we go. So that's the front of the box. On the previous time when we've used little mini pizza boxes and even the wedding card, I did sort of more or less replicate the card that was inside on the box, because those other cards had more going on. There was various layers to them, so there was more of a surprise element when the cards would have been opened. With this, it is a very straightforward open up the card and there it is. So I want to sort of build anticipation with this. I don't want to do a carbon copy of the card, because otherwise once you've seen the box you're going to go, oh well, you know, what's different. So I'm going to put less decoration on the front, which is probably a relief to my cameraman. I'll put any because it looks a bit plain like that. Looks totally rubbish a bit. So when I was prepping the card, I did think about would the bigger daisy work out of the daisy laying suite, but I have to say that having heat embossed it and tried it on the card, it was too big. But I actually think it will work rather well on the box. And I've got a couple of these from the Floral Essence set that I've also heat embossed. So what I'm going to do is put this to one side. There. And I'm just going to go through how I've heat embossed the flowers, and then we can make a final decision as to what we're going to use. So I've got some vellum cardstock here. They're just the plain white vellum. And what I've done is I've cut it into sort of strips of 3 inches, because it's quite easy to mark and damage, so it's better to work with a smaller piece of it. So let's do a couple of these first. So I'm taking that stamp, putting it on my block, and I've got my embossing buddy. I'm just going to run that over the area where we're going to be stamping and embossing. haven't got my little paintbrush. That's not good news. So I've got my Versamark pad, and I'm just going to lay down 2 of these. And then I want some embossing powder. So I've got a little bit of scrap paper here. I'm just putting the embossing powder over the images and lifting it up. Back in the little pot. And then I'm grabbing my heat tool. Should have my paintbrush. No, that's alright. Now, the hotter your heat tool gets, the quicker it will take the embossing, and you want to be quick on this because it is quite a delicate paper, so that's why I was just running it on over my hand, but please don't try that at home. Because it's like a hairdryer and it's very hot. So just run it a little bit, and then start using it, I think, is the answer. So I've got my coordinating punch. I'm just going to punch out my 2 flowers. It's very windy today. Certainly a day to stay in and craft. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. So with my bone folder, I'm just bending the leaves up. Now, what I did find when I was sticking these together, I was initially using glue dots, but because the centrepiece of this is almost like a solid silver, I've described it before, it's almost like a plasticky type of finish, but the surface where the embossing powder is now heated, it was struggling a bit with sticking. So I'm going to stick with my glue dots initially. So I'm just putting 1 glue dot in the middle. Now, this is something you will rarely see me do, and that is get liquid glue out. And I'm just going to squash a little bit. There we go. That's why I don't use liquid glue.
How much?
Not that much. Let me do this one. This is why I don't use this stuff. It and me just do not get on. Okay, there you go. Let's do this bit. So you want a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's alright, we can.
That's it.
There you go, that's it. So you'll have to just pause that. This video is the rescue mission. So I've taken my big blob of glue off of that. It is a little bit sticky, but it won't matter. And I'm sticking this bit onto the base here, so that we make a flower with 6 petals. If I take one of the ones that I've already made, and dare I do this? That was my thought really, but there we go. I think I just squished it a bit too hard. Yeah. But I've had to go and wash my hands. It's just such a performance, so I can't be doing with it. I'm sticking my stamping dimensional to that as well. And then I'm turning this flower around so that again I'm putting the petals off centre again, so you're getting this layering effect. So I've got this thicker flower. Then I'm going to finish that off with a clear faceted gem in the middle, which will cover up. So that's a double flower that I've made. So let's just do the daisy. I'll just do one of the daisies. Just one daisy. And so I'll just go over the area with my embossing buddy again. Still could have got my paintbrush while I was up, couldn't I? So this is how we did the daisy. Put the embossing powder over that. Tap the excess off. Put it back in the pot. Get the pot out of the way. Get the heat tool. And then with the coordinating medium daisy punch, we're just going to punch out that flower. And then you would do another one of those and stick it on top of. So you can stick it on top to make another flower. So what I'm going to do off camera is just make a few more flowers up, because I'm not really quite sure what I'm going to put on the front of the box at this point in time. So I'm just going to make a little bit of a selection of the flowers. I just wanted to show you how I'd made them. So then I'll come back and we'll just finish off putting it together and finishing the box off. Oh, this is just to prove you can move, Ollie. What's this doing? What's that doing? Yes. Oops, mind your eye. Mind your eye. That's not where you're supposed to put your tail, is it? Yeah. Just to prove that you can move around. We don't glue dot you to the bed. You are allowed to move. So, just quickly to finish the box off, moved your stool again. While we were off camera, I cut out some leaves from the Perennial Essence vellum cardstock, and one of the choices in that is this olive green vellum, which is ideal obviously for leaves. I haven't bothered stamping it, I've just literally just cut a set of leaves out using my punch. Now, I have said this before when I've used this particular cardstock, there are two sides to it. So there's a whiter side, it's getting increasingly hard to see anything in this light, and that is the green side. So just something to be aware of. It's more a mental note to myself, if I'm honest. So as I said before, I don't want it to be a replica of the card. I want it to just give an idea of what the card's going to be like. So on each corner I've stuck, using a glue dot, one of my cut out leaves, and to save a little bit more time I have just put some glue dots just there on, or a glue dot on the leaves. So we decided that we would go with daisies over here. So I've made 2 daisy flowers, so there's 2 cut out daisies stuck together. And as we always do when we're making flowers, when you've punched it out, just make sure that you curl the leaves over just to give it that little bit of texture. So we decided that we put all the daisies together in one corner. So I need to stick a couple of glue dots on my big flower. So as I say, whilst that doesn't appear on the card, it is obviously the same daisy, only a bigger version of it. So as I'd made it, it seemed like a good idea to actually use it. So it's quite a big flower, so I'm actually going to stick 3 glue dots on that. So it will cover up this little cutout bit. I just want some of the leaves to be showing. I've got one leaf stuck there. I've put the clear faceted gems in the middle of the flowers just to give them that little bit of added interest. So I'm just going to put that over there. And unlike here where I've got loads of leaves, I'm really going for a more minimal look. So I'll just stick another one over here. On the glue dots. Going through these like a rake of knots recently. A little bit further down. Don't want to be too heavy-handed with the box either. Too much the other way now. There we go. Because I've only got the one dot on there, it's not proving any issue getting it to lift up. Yeah, I think that's better. A bit of an overlap going on with this one as well. So, right, and I'm just going to go down with 3 on this corner. So I add 1 glue dot onto my leaf. Try and gauge this before I stick it. That might make a little bit more sense. So I've got 1 coming out here, and then finally so I've got a triangle of leaves there. And just going to face the leaves so they're pointing diagonally down. There we go. Well, that's the card in the box. That's the box lid finished, and I'm just going to finish that off with a little bit of polka dot tulle ribbon, because as we've worked out over recent weeks, I can actually tie a bow with this, which can't be bad. I can't believe how dark and dismal it is. So I keep a nice long ribbon length on the end of it. It's got to be undone again anyway, because you've got to get your best handwriting and your best pens at the ready again. So there we are. I think the bow could be a bit better. I will deal with that when we finally package it up ready to go. As I say, it has got to all be opened again to actually put a message in it. So that's it. Obviously I've done it for a very specific reason, but you can use any element of what we've done today and to make any card for any occasion that you have a need for a card for. So just a couple of things before I go. As at the 1st of October, no, 1st of November even, the new paper trimmer is available to buy. So there's a blog post about that on my blog. There's also a whole new suite of products that have become available as at the 1st of November, and they are available only on a while supplies last basis. And they have this lovely theme of gold and roses running through them. So it's actually called Christmas Time Is Here Suite. However, apart from a couple of very specific stamps that you would use for Christmas cards, there are so much, oh, sorry, I'll try that again. There's so much more in this particular suite of products that will work for any time of the year and any occasion. So well worth having a look. I'll just share with you one element of it, and that is a great gift for yourself or for somebody else. And it's this very pretty little bracelet, which, as you can see, is gold in colour, not gold, not real gold, not for £20. But that's what it costs. But it's got a really pretty little rose charm on it, and it's also got a little Stampin' Up charm. So lovely gift, as I say, to treat yourself or somebody else that you want to treat. And it's obviously picking up the theme of the suite, the fact that you've got the rose on there and you've got the gold. So well worth having a look. Again, there is a blog post about that. Also comes in a very pretty little gift box. So there's a blog post on that, about that, on my blog as well. So I'll put the link to my website on the front of the video, and you just go into that, and all the icons for my blog and for my social media are all on the right hand top corner. So everything, no, not everything, the majority of things that I've used today can be purchased via my online shop, but the purpose is, even when I've used things that you can't buy, it's just to give you some ideas as well of how you can adjust things to suit what you're trying to make. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, that would be brilliant, and if you've enjoyed the video, a thumbs up would be greatly appreciated. And you can also subscribe to my blog, which means that you get updated when there are various bits of news from Stampin' Up. And I have a feeling that there's going to be more news to be had at the end of, or towards the end of this month. So it's well worth subscribing to my blog. That way you won't miss out on anything. So I think this has gone on for more than long enough. Yes, I'm getting a nod from the cameraman. I'm going to continue this floral theme with the Heat Emboss flowers next time, but next time we're going to be using the gold mini pizza boxes, seeing what we can do with them, and I'm also going to be using an element out of this new product suite that I've just mentioned. So something to look forward to. So until then, you can say goodbye to everybody? No? You grumpy? You're a bit grumpy today, aren't you? Well, I'll say goodbye on your behalf then. So goodbye from Ollie, goodbye from Jim, my cameraman, and goodbye from me. Until next time, do take care, and I will see you again very soon. Bye. So this is about 2 minutes after we've actually finished filming, and now suddenly from being really grumpy you want to get up here and get involved. I don't know. If you've been holding out for more money, I'm afraid you're not going to be getting it. You've already had posh cat treats this week. That's about as good as it's going to get, I'm afraid. Yes, that wasn't quite what I had in mind for that flower. Thought I might use it on something else. So before I turn this camera off, are you going to say goodbye to everybody properly? Are you going to say goodbye? Bye bye. See you next video.